The challenge, the space station Orivis Prime, floated in the dark void, glowing with thousands of bright lights. It was a meeting place for all kinds of species merchants, warriors, traders, diplomats, and wanderers. Every year, it hosted the Interstellar Combat Summit, an event where the strongest from different worlds came to prove their skill. On that day, the main hall was crowded, filled with warriors in armor, alien flags hanging above, and the sound of different languages mixing. Together, among the guests stood Princess Queenorix of the Velrun Empire. She was tall, with silver-blue skin, sharp golden eyes, and armor made of a black metal that seemed alive. Her people were known as one of the most fearsome warrior races in the galaxy. They valued strength above all else, and they measured respect. Only in battle, Queenorix was surrounded by her guards and fellow Velrun warriors. She spoke loudly, her voice carrying across the hall. "I do not understand why humans are even invited here," she said, a smirk on her face. "They are fragile, slow, and lack the spirit of real warriors." Her words drew laughter from the other alien fighters around her. Some clapped, others nodded. A few humans in the crowd lowered their eyes, pretending they hadn't heard, but one man did not look away. Captain Elias Ward of Earth's Security Division stood at the far side of the hall. He was not the largest human, nor the most decorated. But there was a stillness in his posture, a calm focus in his dark eyes. He had heard every word Queenorix had spoken. Elias stepped forward, his boots echoing on the metal floor. The crowd turned. To see what he would do, he stopped a few meters from Queenorix and spoke in a steady voice. "Is that so? Then perhaps you would like to prove it." The room went quiet. Even the background hum of conversation seemed to stop. Queenorix tilted her head, studying him. A slow, amused smile spread across her face. "You wish to challenge me?" she asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. "You, a human?" Her guards chuckled, some even shaking their heads. "Yes," Elias replied simply, his voice unwavering. "No weapons, no armor. Just skill." The Velrun princess laughed. "Ah." Sharp, confident sound. "You are either brave or foolish," she said. "Do you know what happens when someone challenges a Velrun warrior?" Elias didn't blink. "They win," he said, "or they learn something important." The remark caused a stir in the crowd. Some aliens whispered, others grinned. Queenorix's golden eyes narrowed slightly. She was not used to humans speaking to her this way. She decided she would teach him a lesson, one the entire station would witness. "Very well, human," she said. "We fight in the Ring of Honor tomorrow. If you lose and you will kneel before me, admit your weakness, and swear that Earth's men are pathetic." The Velrun warriors behind her smiled like hunters who had found easy prey. Elias nodded once. "And if I win?" he asked. Queenorix's smile froze for a moment. Then, "I will kneel before you," she said, her tone mocking. "And I will say that Earth's men are strong." The hall erupted in noise. Alien traders leaned over balconies to see the man who had just challenged a Velrun princess. A group of human officers exchanged worried looks. It was one thing to face a Velrun warrior, it was another to face their princess in a public fight. But Elias didn't seem worried. He turned and walked away without another word. Queenorix watched him go, expecting to see fear in his shoulders, but saw only a calm, measured stride that unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. As the day went on, the story spread through the station, from the market decks to the fighter barracks. Everyone was talking about the human who had dared to challenge Queenorix. Most believed he was walking to his death. Some said it would be over in seconds. Others placed bets on how many bones he would have broken. That night, Elias was in his small quarters. The lights were dim, his combat suit laid out on the bed. He wasn't a fool. He knew the Velrun princess was stronger, faster, and trained from childhood to fight. But strength alone didn't win every battle. He had been in real combat before. He had seen opponents who were stronger fall to those who were patient, clever, and precise. Elias began to stretch and move. Practicing slow, controlled strikes, he imagined her attacks, her reach, her likely moves. He studied her reputation in his mind. He knew Velrans were prideful. They hated being humiliated. If he could throw her off balance mentally, as well as physically, he might stand a chance. Outside, the station's night cycle dimmed the halls. But inside Elias's quarters, the quiet sound of controlled breathing and steady movement continued. Somewhere in the main hall, Queenorix was likely laughing. Confident she would crush him tomorrow, but Elias wasn't interested in proving her wrong for his own pride. He had something else in mind, a lesson not just for her, but for everyone who thought Earth's men were weak. Tomorrow, in front of the galaxy, he would show them, one way or another. Terms of the duel. The next morning, HFY Prime buzzed with restless energy. Word of the challenge had reached every corner of the station. From the smoky bars on the lower decks to the luxury halls of the ambassadors. Everyone was talking about the human and the Velran princess. Betting pools were already forming. Most heavily against Elias, the Ring of Honor sat at the center of the Combat Summit Arena. It was a circular platform surrounded by tiered seats and open galleries. The rules were ancient and simple: no ranged weapons, no powered armor, no interference. Victory was decided by knockout, submission, or an opponent admitting defeat. Elias arrived early, wearing a simple training uniform: black trousers, light boots, and a sleeveless tunic. No extra armor, no visible weapons. His calm expression drew murmurs from the few spectators already present. They expected him to be nervous. But his eyes scanned the arena with steady focus, as if memorizing every angle. Queenorix entered moments later, and the atmosphere shifted. She was dressed in the traditional Velran combat harness, dark and gleaming, leaving her shoulders bare to display the ceremonial scars of past victories. Golden lines of war paint ran across her cheeks, and her braided silver hair was tied high. Her presence demanded attention, and her people cheered as if victory was already hers. They stood across from each other as the arena master stepped forward. This duel, the old Keth warrior announced, is between Captain Elias Ward of Earth and Princess Queenorix of the Velran Empire. Terms have been agreed upon. If the human loses, he will kneel and declare Earth's men pathetic. If the Velran loses, she will kneel and declare Earth's men strong. The crowd erupted, some cheering, others jeering. Queenorix smirked at Elias, tilting her head slightly. "I hope you've prepared your words, human," she said loud enough for the audience to hear. Elias's reply was calm, almost casual. "I have," he said, "but I doubt I'll be the one saying them." A ripple of laughter and shock spread through the stands. Queenorix's smirk tightened. But she didn't reply. Instead, she leaned closer, her voice low so only he could hear. "I will not just make you kneel, I will break your pride so you never stand before me again." Elias met her gaze without blinking. "We'll see," he said simply. The arena master raised his hand to silence the noise. The duel would not be fought immediately. Was tradition for combatants to have one full day to prepare once terms were finalized in the ring. Until then, they could train, rest, or study their opponent. That day of waiting was meant to build anticipation, but for Elias, it was also an opportunity. He left the arena without drama, ignoring reporters and curious onlookers instead of training in the open gym like many fighters did. He found a quiet maintenance bay and began to work alone. He practiced controlled movements, sidesteps, low sweeps, sudden pivots. He knew he could never overpower Queenorix in direct strikes, but strength could be redirected, and overconfidence could be used like a weapon. Meanwhile, Queenorix trained in the Velran Embassy's private combat chamber. Her warriors surrounded her, offering tips and strategies, though she hardly needed them. She had fought in over 100 duels and lost only twice both times to Velron champions. Never to an outsider, to her. This fight was not a risk, but a stage. A chance to remind everyone that Velron stood above humans. That evening, the main hall of the station filled with more rumors. Some said Elias had a secret weapon hidden in his uniform. Others claimed he had once taken down 3 armed raiders with his bare hands. No one knew which was true, but the mystery made the story spread even faster. Elias spent the night reviewing recordings of past Velron fights. He had managed to get them from a friend in the station's security archives. He studied Queenorix's style carefully. She was aggressive, often overwhelming opponents with speed and raw power, but she had a pattern 3 quick attacks. Then a heavier finishing blow. If he could survive the first wave, he could turn the fight. When the station's morning cycle began, the arena was already overflowing. Every seat was taken, balconies were packed, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Velron flags hung high, but here and there. A few humans stood proudly holding Earth's blue and green banners. Elias stepped into the arena first, calm as ever. Queenorix entered moments later to thunderous applause from her people. The arena master's voice rang out once more. "This is a fight of honor. Combatants, prepare yourselves." They stepped to the center. The tension thick, Queenorix leaned close, her golden eyes glinting. "Last chance." "To walk away human," she said softly. Elias's answer was quiet but firm. "If I walked away, you'd think you were right." The signal was given and the crowd roared. But before the first strike was thrown, both fighters knew this was more than a duel. It was a battle for pride, respect, and the right to be heard. In a galaxy where strength was everything, tomorrow one would kneel, and the galaxy would remember. The first clash, the arena fell silent as the signal to begin echoed across the ring of honor. Queenorix moved first, her body a blur of muscle and precision. She closed the distance between them in less than a heartbeat. Her first strike aimed at Elias's head. The air seemed to crack as her arm sliced through it. But Elias shifted just enough for the blow to pass by. The crowd gasped, some in surprise, some in delight. Velron warriors shouted encouragement, their voices deep and proud. Queenorix did not pause. Her second strike came low. Aiming for his ribs, Elias blocked with his forearm, impact sending a sharp jolt through his body. She followed instantly with a third. A sweeping kick meant to take his legs. Elias stepped back, the sole of her boot grazing his shin but not knocking him down. She was fast, faster than most humans could follow. But Elias had expected this. He kept his guard tight, his movements small and efficient. He was not trying to match her speed or strength, only to survive the first wave. Queenorix's golden eyes narrowed, seeing her strikes fail to land cleanly. The fourth attack came. The heavy finishing blow Elias had studied. In her past fights, it was a crushing downward strike with her full weight behind it. Elias sidestepped sharply, letting her momentum carry her forward. His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist, and with a twist, he redirected her force past him. Queenorix stumbled a single step, small, but enough to draw gasps from the audience. Elias didn't press the attack yet. He released her wrist and stepped back. "Eyes steady." It was a message, "I can read you." Queenorix's lips curved into a sharper smile. But it was no longer pure mockery. There was a flicker of respect there. She circled him slowly now, her boots echoing on the ring's metal surface. "You're not as slow as I thought," she said, her voice carrying over the crowd. Elias didn't answer, his breathing even, his stance ready. Queenorix lunged again, this time changing her rhythm. She struck high, low, then twisted to come from the side. Elias blocked the first, dodged the second. But the third caught him across the shoulder. The impact sent a wave of pain through him. But he stayed upright. Koresh's strength was like nothing he had felt before every blow from her could have. Dropped a lesser fighter. Still, he adjusted, shifting his stance to protect his left side. He needed to show her he would not break. The fight moved in bursts of motion. Their footsteps quick on the steel floor. Koresh attacked relentlessly, testing every angle. Atias defended, letting her burn energy every time she thought she had him cornered. He slipped away every time she landed a blow. He absorbed it and came back with a small counter enough to frustrate her. Not enough to end the fight yet. Minutes passed, the crowd roaring louder with each exchange from the stands. The Velron supporters began to shout more urgently. Koresh was not winning as easily as they had promised themselves she would. A few human voices dared to cheer for Elias, their confidence growing. Koresh's breathing deepened, a thin sheen of sweat beginning to shine on her skin. She realized he was forcing her to fight longer than she wanted. Velrons were known for their explosive starts, overwhelming foes in moments. But Elias was stretching the fight, pulling her into unfamiliar territory. She feinted, left, then struck. Right, her knee driving toward his stomach. Elias caught her leg mid-strike. Twisting his hips and pulling, she staggered forward, forced to hop once to keep balance. It was a small victory. But the crowd roared. The human had disrupted her flow again. Elias didn't smile, didn't taunt. He simply reset his stance, eyes never leaving hers. Koresh's pride flared. No one had ever fought her like this. She was used to fear in her opponent's eyes, but his were calm, unshaken. She stepped forward again, this time slower. Every movement of hers was now careful. Her strikes more calculated. The playful arrogance from earlier had been replaced with focus. For the first time, she acknowledged that this human was a true opponent. They clashed again, blows echoing through the arena. Elias deflected a punch, ducked under a hook, and countered with an elbow to her side. It was not a heavy strike, but it made her grunt. The noise drew murmurs from the audience. Velron warriors were not supposed to make such sounds in battle. Koresh's gaze sharpened. "You're trying to wear me down," she said under her breath. Elias gave the faintest nod. "Seems to be working," he replied quietly. Before she could respond, the arena master's voice boomed. "Halfway mark, continue." The announcement made the crowd erupt again. For many, the fact that the human had lasted this long was already shocking. For others, it meant the real fight was only beginning. Koresh rolled her shoulders, loosening her stance. Elias shifted, his weight ready for the next exchange. Around them, the noise of the galaxy seemed to fade until there was only the sound of their breathing and the ring beneath their feet. The first half had been about survival. The second half would decide who knelt. The turning point, the air in the Ring of Honor, felt heavier now. The crowd's roars had become a constant rumble, like thunder trapped in a metal bowl. Elias's shirt clung to his skin with sweat, but his eyes stayed locked on Koresh. She was breathing harder than before, her chest rising and falling with controlled but deeper breaths. The first half of the fight had been hers, aggressive, powerful, unrelenting. But now the pace had shifted. Elias was no longer only defending. He had begun to read her. Every slight twitch in her shoulders, every angle in her stance told him what she planned next. Koresh stepped forward again, launching a sharp strike toward his jaw. Elias slipped under it and answered with a short jab to her ribs. It wasn't a heavy hit, but it made her step back in surprise. The human had attacked, and it landed cleanly. The Velron crowd shouted for her to crush him. Her golden eyes burned hotter. She came in faster, mixing high and low strikes to break his defense. Elias let to graze him, then pivoted sharply, sweeping his foot behind hers. Her balance faltered for a moment, and the audience gasped. The princess had stumbled. The stumble wasn't enough to drop her, but it was enough to plant a seed in every watching mind. The human could make her fall. Koresh gritted her teeth, a flicker of frustration flashing. Across her face, for the first time, her strikes came with a hint of desperation. Elias saw it and pressed the advantage. When she attacked, he no longer just blocked, he redirected. Twisting her momentum, a punch of hers slid past him harmlessly, followed by his palm striking her shoulder. Forcing her to turn, she swung her leg toward him. But he stepped inside her range, bumping his shoulder into her chest and forcing her back. The crowd began to shift in energy. Some Velrans were frowning now. Some humans were standing, shouting encouragement. It was no longer a one-sided fight. Koresh tried to reset, stepping back and rolling her shoulders. Her voice was calm, but edged with tension. "You fight like a shadow," she said, circling him. "You don't block my blows. You let them pass, like you are not even there." Elias's voice was quiet but firm. "Shadows don't break," he said. "They wait until you tire." She let out a sharp laugh, but there was no humor in it. "You think I'll tire?" she said. Elias didn't answer. He simply moved forward, closing the space. Their next exchange was the fastest yet. Koresh struck high, low, then spun for a wide kick. Elias ducked, caught her leg mid-spin, and with a smooth pivot, swept her. Supporting leg from under her, her body hit the ring floor with a loud metallic thud. The entire arena froze for a heartbeat. Koresh, the Velron princess, was on her back. She rolled quickly to her feet, refusing to stay down, but the image had burned into everyone's mind. The human had dropped her. Her pride flared hot, and she lunged with raw power. Her next attacks were heavier, her movements sharper. She was fighting to erase that moment from memory. But Elias was ready. He blocked one, sidestepped another, and answered with a sharp elbow to her side. Koresh winced, barely visible, but Elias saw it. He stepped in again, forcing her to react faster than she liked. Another deflection, another strike to her ribs. Her breathing was louder now, and her movements less smooth. The Velran crowd roared louder, trying to fuel her with their voices, but the shift in momentum was real. Elias was no longer the prey he was hunting openings. And every time he found one, Koresh's confidence took another small cut. Midway through the round, she tried to end it. She feinted a high punch, then drove her knee toward his chest with brutal force. Elias stepped to the side at the last moment, caught her arm and used her forward momentum to spin her down to one knee. For a split second, she was kneeling before him, her head level with his chest. The crowd gasped. It wasn't the official end. She sprang back up instantly, but they had seen it. They had seen the image of her in that position. And it would be hard to forget. Koresh's eyes burned with determination now. She realized this human wasn't here to simply survive. He had come to make her kneel for real, and that thought drove her into a focused fury. They circled again, both fighters moving lighter on their feet, every muscle tense, every sense sharpened. The crowd leaned forward, sensing the fight had reached its turning point. Koresh feinted left. Elias didn't bite. She struck right. He deflected. She came with a low sweep. He hopped over it and landed in perfect stance. The rhythm of the fight was his now, and she knew it. For the first time, the Velron princess understood that this duel could truly end. With her defeat, and Elias knew it too, he could see it in her eyes. The fight was far from over. But control had shifted. The moment of truth was coming, and when it did, only one of them would walk away with their pride intact. The final blow. Roar of the crowd was a storm around the Ring of Honor. Some voices screamed for Koresh to crush the human. Others, smaller in number but growing louder, cheered for Elias. Every pair of eyes in the arena was locked on the fighters. Both were marked by the battle sweat on their faces, bruises, forming muscles burning, but neither was willing to yield. Elias kept his stance low and steady, his breathing controlled. He could feel the fight nearing its end. Koresh's strikes still carried power, but her movements had lost the effortless precision she had shown at the start. Each swing came a fraction slower. Each dodge left her slightly more open. He knew the window for victory was about to open, and when it did, he had to take it without hesitation. Koresh lunged forward, her right fist aimed at his jaw. Elias slipped sideways. Letting the blow pass by, she spun with her other arm, catching his shoulder. The impact sharp but not crippling. He used the momentum, turning with her. Movement instead of resisting in that turn. He caught a glimpse of her side and guarded for half a second. He struck with his elbow, driving it into her ribs. Koresh staggered a step. Her teeth clenched against the pain. She snarled and charged again, but Elias was already moving. His mind was calm, his body flowing through the fight as if he had practiced this exact sequence 100 times. He wasn't faster than her, but he was now one step ahead of her every move. She came high with a hammer-like punch. Elias ducked under, stepped in close, and caught her arm in one smooth motion. He twisted and pulled, unbalancing her. Her boots scraped against the metal floor as she fought to stay upright. He didn't let go, his other arm hooked behind her neck, pulling her forward while his leg blocked hers. The crowd erupted as Koresh lost her balance completely and crashed to the floor. She rolled quickly, refusing to stay down, but Elias could see the frustration in her eyes. He had thrown her twice now, and the Velron pride inside her burned at the thought. Koresh came at him with a burst of raw fury. Her strikes were wild but heavy, forcing Elias to block hard. One punch hit his forearm so hard that his muscles ached instantly. A kick grazed his ribs, making him grunt. But her rage was also her weakness. She was burning energy faster than she could recover it. Elias let her push him back toward the edge of the ring. The crowd thought he was losing ground, but he was baiting her with each step. He waited for her pattern to reappear, the rhythm he had studied from the start. 3 quick attacks. Then the heavy finishing blow. It came just as he expected. She launched the final crushing strike toward his chest. Elias pivoted, grabbed her arm, and used her own speed against her. He spun, dropped his weight, and flipped her clean over his shoulder. Koresh slammed onto her back, the breath knocked from her lungs. Before she could rise, Elias stepped forward and locked her arm. She tried to twist free, but the pressure forced her to freeze. The crowd's noise became a deafening wave, half in disbelief, half in shock. The arena master moved closer, watching for the signal of surrender. Elias's voice was calm but firm as he looked down at her. "Yield," he said. Koresh's eyes blazed, pride and stubbornness holding her in place. But her body was pinned, her strength trapped. If she resisted further, she risked real injury. The Velron warriors in the crowd shouted for her to fight. The humans shouted for her to give in. Her golden eyes locked with Elias's. For a long moment, neither moved, the whole arena holding its breath. Then, with a slow exhale, Koresh tapped her free hand against the floor 3 times, the universal signal of surrender. The arena master's voice thundered through the speakers. Victory to Captain Elias, Ward of Earth. The crowd erupted, cheers and shouts mixing in a storm of sound. Some Velrons stood in stunned silence, unable to believe what they had seen. The humans were shouting his name now. Elias released her arm immediately and stepped back. He did not raise his fists in triumph, did not taunt her. He simply stood there, calm, steady, unshaken. Koresh rose slowly, her breathing still heavy. For a moment, she just looked at him. Then, true to the terms of the duel, she lowered herself to one knee before the human. The sight made the arena fall silent for a heartbeat. Her voice carried clearly when she spoke. "Earth's men are strong." The words echoed through the arena. Every warrior, every diplomat, Every trader in the stands knew they had witnessed something that would be spoken of for years. Elias nodded once, offering her his hand. She hesitated, then took it, letting him pull her to her feet. There was no shame in her gaze, now only respect, and somewhere beneath that respect, the faint spark of curiosity. The duel was over, but something had begun. The respect earned the echoes of the arena master's voice still hung in the air. Koresh's kneeling figure was burned into the memory of everyone watching. A Velron princess warrior born, undefeated by any outsider, had admitted before the galaxy that Earth's men were strong. It was not just a victory for Elias, it was a message that would spread far beyond Arrivas Prime. As Koresh rose, her hand still in Elias's grip, the crowd erupted again. The cheers of the humans rolled like a wave through the arena. Some Velrons shouted in protest, others remained silent, their expressions unreadable. But even in the faces of her people, there was no denial of the truth. They had seen her bested in fair combat. Elias let go of her hand once she was steady. "You fought well," he said quietly, his tone genuine. Koresh studied him for a moment, her golden eyes no longer filled with mockery. "You too." "Human," she replied, her voice low but steady. It was the first time she had called him that without insult. The arena master gestured for them to leave the ring. As they walked toward the exit, the crowd pressed forward along the railings, shouting questions, cheers, and even offers of drinks. Elias ignored the noise. Keeping his stride calm, Koresh walked beside him, her steps measured, her head held high despite the loss outside the arena. The reporters swarmed, cameras hovered in the air, recording every glance, every word. "Captain Ward, how did you defeat a Velron warrior?" "Princess Koresh, how does it feel to lose to a human?" Either answered, moving through the chaos without breaking stride. When they reached the quieter corridors of the station, Koresh stopped. She turned to face him, her expression serious. "You've done something today that no human has done before," she said. Elias met her gaze. "It wasn't about proving you wrong," he said. It was about proving my people deserve respect." Her lips pressed together in thought. "I was wrong about Earth's men," she admitted. "They are not weak or pathetic." She said it with a weight that told Elias she meant every word. They walked together toward the ambassador's level. Along the way, they passed groups of alien warriors who stepped aside to let them through. Some nodded respectfully at Elias' gesture that would have been unthinkable only a day earlier. Others looked at him with calculation, already wondering how they might fare in a fight against this human. News of the duel spread faster than light. Within hours, the station's public feeds were replaying the final moments over and over: the flip, the pin, the surrender, the kneel on distant planets. Soldiers and fighters were already debating what it meant. Some claimed it was luck. Others said it was proof that humans were more dangerous than anyone had believed. In the Velron embassy, Koresh stood before her warriors. They were silent, waiting to hear how she would explain the loss. She surprised them by not making excuses. "The human defeated me in honorable combat," she said plainly. "He earned my respect, and he should have yours as well." There were murmurs among them, but none dared challenge her words. Velrons valued honor above victory, and if their princess said the human was worthy of respect, they could not call him dishonorable. Meanwhile, Elias was called to the human delegation's chamber. The ambassador greeted him with a wide smile and a rare handshake. "You've done more for Earth's image than 100 diplomatic meetings," the ambassador said. "Today, every warrior here will think twice before underestimating a human." Elias didn't smile, but his eyes carried quiet satisfaction. "It wasn't about fear," he said. "It was about showing we belong here." The ambassador nodded. "And you did." Later that evening, as the station shifted into its night cycle, Elias found himself walking the quieter upper decks. The sounds of the arena were far behind him. The stars beyond the viewport burned silently, endless and cold. He stood there for a while, hands in his pockets, letting the calm settle in. Footsteps approached from behind. Queenorix came to stand. Beside him, her armor replaced by a simple training robe. "I have fought many warriors," she said, looking out at the stars. "But very few have taught me something." Elias glanced at her. "And what did I teach you?" She smirked slightly. "That strength is more than muscle." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Queenorix extended her hand, not in the grip of challenge, but in the clasp of equals. Elias took it, their hands locking firmly. There was no need for more words. The respect between them had been earned in the only way that mattered here in battle. Somewhere deep inside, both of them knew this was not the last time they would meet in the ring, but next time it would not be for pride alone. The unspoken Bantha station's day cycle faded into the deep blues and silvers of night. Most visitors had left the arena levels, but whispers of the duel still lingered in every hallway. Merchants spoke of it in the markets, soldiers replayed it on datapads in the barracks, and diplomats used it as a fresh talking point at their endless meetings. But for Elias and Queenorix, the noise had faded, leaving only the quiet that comes after a storm. Elias sat alone in the observation lounge, a place where the glass walls stretched from floor to ceiling. Opening into the vast black of space, stars burned like cold fire, and distant ships drifted between them like sparks. He sipped from a metal cup of hot tea, letting the heat calm his muscles. His body ached from the fight-deep bruises along his ribs, a tight pull in his shoulder, but the ache was honest, earned. The soft sound of boots on metal made him glance over his shoulder. Queenorix stood there, no armor this time. Dressed in a loose, dark robe tied at the waist, her silver hair was unbraided, falling over her shoulders, and without the war paint, her face seemed different, not softer, but more human in its tiredness. "Is this where you hide from the celebration?" she asked, walking toward him. Elias looked back at the stars. "Not hiding," he said, "just breathing." She came to stand beside him, her arms crossed as she gazed into the void beyond the glass. "For a human, you fight like someone who's seen too many wars," she said quietly. Elias didn't deny it. "I've seen enough," he replied. They stood in silence for a while, the hum of the station the only sound between them. Finally, Queenorix turned to face him fully. "I thought I knew strength," she said, "but today you made me see something else. Control, patience, the will to stand when others would fall." Her voice held no pride now, only respect. Elias met her gaze. "And I thought I knew Valrins," he said. "But you're not just brute force, you're honor." Queenorix gave the smallest of smiles. Honor is useless without someone to test it. For a moment, there was no princess and no soldier, just two warriors who had met on even ground. She reached into the folds of her robe and pulled out a small object of Valrin crest made of black metal, shaped like a curved blade. She held it out to him. "This is a warrior's token," she explained. "It means that if you call on me, I will answer." Elias looked at it for a long moment before taking it, the cool weight heavy in his palm. He nodded once, then, "I'll keep it." They returned to looking at the stars, but the air between them had changed. This wasn't the distant, wary respect of two opponents. It was something closer, something built in sweat, pain, and the quiet moments after a battle. After a while, Queenorix said, "There will be those who challenge you now, fighters, who think beating you will erase what happened today." Elias shrugged slightly. "Let them try," he said. "I didn't fight you for fame." Queenorix tilted her head. "Then why?" Elias's answer was simple: because respect isn't given, it's taken. She studied him again, the corner of her mouth curling. "I wonder," she said, "if the galaxy will fear you. Or follow you. Does it matter?" Elias asked. It might, she replied softly. One day, the sound of a distant announcement echoed through the lounge, calling passengers to departing shuttles. Koresh straightened. I leave 4. Velrun space tomorrow, she said. Elias gave a small nod. And I stay here. There was a pause. Until next time, Captain, she said, turning to go. She made it 3 steps before stopping. Without looking back, she added, do not lose that token. Elias's voice was steady. Not a chance. When she was gone, Elias remained by the glass, rolling the small black crest between his fingers. Somewhere out there, in the endless stars, was a warrior who had once mocked his kind and now carried his respect. He knew they would meet again, maybe as allies, maybe as rivals, but whatever came, the bond forged in the Ring of Honor would not break. As the station lights dimmed further, Elias took one last sip of tea. The fight was over. The noise had faded, but the story had only just begun, and in the silence of space, he almost thought he could hear the distant echo of Koresh's voice, not in mockery, but in truth. Earth's men are strong.